Welcome back, creepy people, to the Big Go Belt channel. It's your girl, Zero Gravity, pulling up on you again. And today, Najir and I, we're going back to the 80s, okay? We are talking Lisa Frankenstein, which is coming to theaters today, actually. It's going to drop today, February 9th. See it. It's bubblegum coated. It's cute. It's fun. It's teeny bopper. We're going to pull it apart today. But really quick, before we get into the nitty gritty, the details and stuff, let me just read the synopsis for you really quickly. We have a coming of rage love story about a teenager and her crush who happens to be a corpse. After a set of horrific circumstances that bring him back to life, the two embark on a journey to find love, happiness, and a few missing body parts. What's your first reaction to this film, Najir?
I didn't see the trailer, but I thought they did a really good job with the marketing. I'd say the marketing vehicle behind it, the colors they use, the play on the name. I think is very catchy. If you see Frankenstein, you automatically start saying and I think that the synopsis easily piques your intrigue, and I think the 80s aesthetic, especially in cinema, is highly favored. I think Stranger Things is definitely like the bar when you sort of address that specific genre. So they did a lot of good things right out the gate. And then I think that there is some notoriety and yet a fandom behind the leads as well too. So I think first off, when you think about Kathryn Newton, I mean, easily you're like, okay, very intriguing. Then I think at some point in everybody's life, they've either watched or heard of the Sweet Light of Zach and Cody. So you're like, oh, it's one of the Sprouse twins. Let me see what's going on. And quick shout out to Dylan, who's not in this film, but he also has a film dropping as well too. So the fact that the two of them both got projects dropping, it's going to be interesting. Beautiful Wedding. I checked that out about a week ago. I'm not sure what the release date is, but I did check it out. It's the sequel to Beautiful Disaster, and it stars one of my favorite actors, Virginia Gardner. So like, there's a lot of different little reasons why I think you may be interested in this film, but I thought they definitely did a good job on the front end in terms of piquing the intrigue, in terms of like, what is that? And I think you are able to determine what you want to do beyond that moment of curiosity.
Yeah, I agree. There's lots of little things that could like bring you to this film. When it was first announced, the first thing that piqued my interest was Zelda Williams, who is directing this film. And I got that girl in my back pocket. I am sure as hell rooting for Zelda Williams.
Yeah.
So I came to support. The screenplay is also written by Diablo Cody, who you may have remembered from her previous stories, Jennifer's Body, Ow, Ow. And also she wrote Juno from way back in the day, which is undeniably has been a historical hit. So we have crazy amounts of girl power attached to this film. It's also a female lead. It's coated in what we call that bisexual lighting that femme filmmakers love so much, because it's bright and it's attractive. And it leads this like kind of otherworldly dream states, which is attractive to honestly any type of audience. I'm also sold on the gag that is the title. So I'm personally a 90s baby, and I grew up with Lisa Frank. I had the notebooks. As you can see, pink and purple didn't really work out for me, but I was there back in the day. The bright tigers and unicorns, stationary stickers, whatever. I was rocking it all when I was going to school. So Lisa Frankenstein definitely piqued my interest with the title alone, the power that's behind it. Also, just the 80s are in right now. I'm really happy that you mentioned Stranger Things, because the father figure in this movie is also Mr. Wheeler from Stranger Things, that has that classic I don't give a crap 80s dad trope that for some reason was so popular. And it, even though we have him in pretty much the exact same character archetype, I'm happy to see it because it really just sets a comedic vibe. One concern that I did have with this film is a little bit, believe it or not, I know this sounds crazy, but like the ethical line. There was a movie that came out several years ago called Warm Bodies that rubbed your girl in all the wrong directions. all the wrong directions. And after watching Lisa Frankenstein, I figured out why Warm Bodies didn't work, because this one, it did work for me. And I think, not to get a little too on the dark side here, but necrophilia is wrong. If you haven't heard already, that's the news. Necrophilia is wrong. So with that, I want to see a dangerous story. I want to see people playing God, and I want to see people having to deal with the repercussions of power. That's what makes a Frankenstein story so freaking awesome. And I will
Yeah.
say, at this point, we have gotten a lot of really cool and interesting newer renditions of Frankenstein. After I saw Birth/Rebirth, I was like, man, no one will ever again attempt a Frankenstein film. But you know what? It works because it has a little bit of that malicious accent while still being a teen drama.
Yeah.
It's not all, roses and dandelions and chocolate hearts. It's also a little psychotic. And again, it's a teen film, but we really go there.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing. You have to remember it's a teen film, so you're instantly going to recognize if the film works for you or not. It does have its dark humor. Again, the 80s aesthetic, so I'm all in for the attire, the backdrop, and the set locations. I'm all in for that. And then the one thing that I was really digging that I had a problem with towards the end of this film is that this film was very artsy in the beginning, and then they stirred away from it very quickly. There were some shots, a couple of shots that come to mind. They used some noirs and some black and white. It's Frankenstein, of course you got to get some black and white in there. They had this scene that I thought was very interesting with the cinematography. She's kind of walking down the hallway, and it's not actually a hallway. It's sort of just a set prop that they kind of use, and you can clearly tell that like this is just something
Mm.
to like, for imagery and whatnot. And then things got a little trippy, and they did some other, cool visual things. And I was for that. I think that I think if we learned anything, that folks like artsy. Poor Things, the movie that just recently came out, is the clear depiction of what an artsy film could lead to in terms of success. And I'm not just going to say the acceptance of Hollywood, but the acceptance of viewers. People dug that film, all things considered, whether you were against the themes or not. But it was undeniable that that film was shot beautifully, and I loved how this felt like the essence of like, if that film was able to do that, I want to try some things. And they definitely, for about maybe like the first third of the film, they went that direction, and then it just went away. So I wish they had stuck to it, but at least it's a sign of things possibly to come in terms of capitalizing off of knowing that it does work and it does look good and people will talk about it, but they didn't just execute it for the entire film. And
Mm-hmm.
I just can't stress enough. I mean, yeah, the 80s nostalgia. There's so many little things, and I feel like my theater was very split down the middle.
Okay.
Folks said it was boring, some folks didn't react. But being an 80s kid, I was laughing at particular things that some folks didn't think were funny, but it took me back because I think that's a big catalyst when you do a period piece, shall we say, and going back into the 80s. I mean, Lisa's full name before it was Lisa Frankenstein, spoiler, because was Lisa Swallows. So when Lisa got called to the principal's office and they named it over the PA system, I bust out laughing. Cause I was like, I remember there used to be puns on people's names all the time. And it was like a running joke of like folks who had these funny names that you just couldn't help but to laugh at. And sure, we're immature, but like it just took me back into like being back in high school. So I say all of that to say, if you're able to come into this film and leave your adult at the door, leave your adult rationality, your adult vision, your adult eyes. You come in here and you just want to have a good time, have some fun, go back down this very nostalgic path that it takes us. I think you enjoy it a lot more. You're going to find humor in things that probably isn't really that funny, but because you know where the source of that humor is kind of coming from, you kind of buy into it. And you overlook the many flaws within the plot. And I'm not saying that they're flaws because it's a problem with the plot, but it's because the film doesn't take itself serious.
Mm.
You know, there's things where it's like, I'm not going to spend time ironing out how did the creature or Frankenstein, whatever you want to call it, how did he learn to drive? We're not going to spend time on that. We're not going to spend time that he gets his new hand, so now his coordination's back. We're not going to spend time on that logic. And it's sure you start to think like, man, my man was definitely limping around a whole lot a minute ago. Now he gets his extra hand and his equilibrium is fixed. Interesting. But sure, you go back and say, forget that. Just have fun. The movie's gross. I mean, if you were a fan of Bugman and Men in Black, yeah.
Mm.
In that performance, I gotta say that I felt like Cole kind of tapped into that. And that's fun. Men in Black, another movie that if you go in it too logical, you don't enjoy it. But if you
Mhm.
just kind of take that bit of piece of rationality and vocal thinking through that adult lens, then you'll be okay. You know, you take that away, you'll be okay. So that was my take, and almost my overall assessment of my review is just that if you understand what you're getting into now, and you prepare yourself in that fashion, you'll enjoy this film a lot more. If you go in there trying to be an adult, trying to be overly critical, trying to pick this apart, you're gonna walk away and say, "Yep, pass." So
Mhm.
you decide what you want to do.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much aligns with my general takeaway as well. I wouldn't call it a 5-star joint. I can't see this film, you know, racking in the awards or anything like that, but it sure is a damn good time. And it will trick you and it will seduce you into laughing at stuff that you normally wouldn't laugh at. Because at the end of the day, we are not teenagers. But we can go back there for a good 100 minutes and laugh at Lisa Swallows and all the phallic jokes that we have and things that we would laugh at if we were in high school at this time. And I think that's really what saves this film is that it does not take itself seriously and it knows how silly it is. Like we are
Yeah,
going all the way in to the silly aspect. But that being said, it still is a teen movie. And what I usually look for in teen horror is, will this be a good gateway? And I absolutely think it will be a good gateway if it does do well with teen audiences, which I really hope it does. We have lots of odes to classic horror. The Mummy, Bride of Frankenstein, so on and so forth. Or Zombie. There's a crazy Lucio Fulci reference in there, which I was
yeah.
like, whoa, okay, we are really going there. So yes, this is a good horror gateway. It doesn't shy away from the gore. As you said, it is gross. It's silly. It's a little stupid. But at the end of the day, it's just a vibe, and it's one of those movies where you can go to the theater or watch at home when it makes it to our screens at home, and just turn your brain off for a while and have a good stupid chuckles. And I think that goes forever, and that's what makes a film that can last. So again, it's not a 5-star joint, but I think it will do well if you give it the time of day.
Yeah, and raunchy. I don't know if you said the word, but raunchy,
Yeah.
weird. Hell, you can even go as far as saying kinky at times because
Hmm.
it's your teenage life. Whether you're able to identify what you're doing or what you're desiring, but like they nail that to the T. So I think the film is very self aware.
Hmm.
And that's the problem, and hopefully why folks like to tune into us, and other critics and content creators alike to understand that like when people are making films, understand what the film is trying to the source of where the film, understanding the directors, the writers, and folks behind that, so that you can understand their vision, and from their vision, that way you can try to understand what they're trying to show you, and then you can critique it off of that, not what you want it to be. You see Lisa
Hmm.
Frankenstein, do not think you're coming in here for a creature feature, because you're not. It's a very weird and unorthodox love stories that is honoring a lot of the great and legendary and iconic um films within the genre, and nods towards Frankenstein. But at the end of the day, I think this is very character driven, almost coming to age, because it really stands on its own. There's no backlog needed to enjoy this. And I think from Cole, and I think from Kathryn has the utmost charisma. I've seen her in so many different things where you just don't know what type of character she's going to put on. I mean, you could go to Ant-Man and says like, yeah, she played the daughter damsel in distress, but I'm also kind of grown daughter at the same time. And then here you see her completely killed the sexy goth girl who's just completely self-aware of her beauty and her power, and then to see her even transform into sort of a woman who has now gathered this power to use it to whatever she desires, whatever the time being, whatever it may be. She's very ambitious in what she wants to accomplish in this. She just does it, and I think again, I think is that the actors led the film in a way of what they were given, and they took the most out of it. I also want to give a really strange shout out to Henry Ackenberry. He plays the character Michael, right? Michael, it's Michael that loses his hand, right? I think it's Michael, right?
We talking about the little freak?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it Bryce Romero? Doug, that's who it was. Doug. Okay. Anyway, if I'm getting the names wrong, whatever, because I'm not familiar with the actor, I'm just going to say it's the actor who loses his hand.
Mm-hmm.
He did his best. If y'all know who Baby Alien is, he did his best Baby Alien impersonation. And if you don't know who Baby Alien is, please Google at your own precaution. Not safe for work. The dude was weird, and it was so weird in such a short time that yeah. So, and then the stepmom. How could I forget
Oh
here?
my gosh, so good.
Yeah. So like to kind of really elevate, besides giving the love to the leads here, there was other supporting characters and actors who really brought their characters and gave them so much life. You were invested into, as you mentioned, the dad, the stepmom, the stepsister, the high school clique of girls who you like Mean Girls all day, every day. Like, you get it. You know what I mean? The creepy boyfriend, or I'm sorry, excuse me, the creepy dude that wants to date her and loses his hand, and Baby Alien, look it up. And then the love interest who goes from like Mr. Nice Guy to total jerk. Like you getting all of these different tropes, but they're doing it in a way that's still like, I recognize this, I get it, but it still feels very refreshing. At no point I was like, that again. Right. As many times Mean Girls just came out, and I still was just kind of like, let's see what I instantly said, what's going to happen to them? I'm interested to see what's going to happen to them, but I think the character work in the film was good.
Yeah, I agree. We've talked about this before. It's one thing to put a great actor in a role and give them not a lot to work with, but I think the writing team who created the dialogue and then the actors that they cast in those characters just melded so perfectly. So the stepmom is played by Carla Gugino, which is kind of a horror legend. If you're a fan of Hill House or Bly Manor, Midnight Mass, that newest one that comes out, she's all over those, and is just a really strong and intense actor. It was really cool to see her in this kooky, kind of stereotypical villain stepmom role. She absolutely ate that shit up. She, excuse my French, but she ate that up. She really did. And also I'm smelling a rising star with Liza Soberano, who plays the stepsister Taffy. Man, if I don't get like 75 cc's of this girl in the next 2 years, I'm gonna be upset, because she was really something. And especially for a secondary character, just kind of stole the show for me. Her character and the way that she delivered, also, I think that she would make a great character addition to any horror movie. So we have some fire in this cast. We definitely do.
Yeah, and potential. And also shout out to the old guy who towards the very, very end of the film, upon driving past Taffy, was the biggest definition of either it ain't my business, or if or my name is Bennett, I ain't in it. I mean, just the most careless character ever. And you'll see what I see, but like little stuff like that is on paper probably doesn't make you laugh. You see it, you say that was funny. And we wasn't here to just break this film down. I'm sure in passing, you don't say like, yo, that end part where the car drive and da-da-da-da-da, that was funny. It's because like, I thought the film did a lot of small little nuggets that was hilarious, that, we could talk about the little boy who, this is actually my favorite part of the movie. There's an older man, and figuratively, we always talk about people getting the brakes beat off of them or getting the pants knocked off of them because they got beat so bad. I cannot believe that actually was a thing that happened. And the little kid bear witness to, I'm just going to guess or assume, his abusive or just flat out annoying uncle, grandfather, something, whatever. But like little stuff like that, because the boy acknowledging, like, thank you, you saved my life, is so funny to me. Because I guess when you're when you're really big into like murder mystery, investigative discovery, and true crime and horror, you start to think of what that story is like, because you know that grandfather, that uncle, is a total deuce, and what he's doing to that little boy is probably horrific. We just don't know, abusing him, making him cut the grass 3 times a day. Like, you can feel that sense of like, and I'm not even making this up, because the grandfather comes at the creature, or Frankenstein, whatever you want to call him, with some choice words, and I'm like, oh, he got to get got.
Yep.
I know this is in the 80s, but he got to get got for what he said, and he said some things that are hella offensive, and so he gets the brakes beat off of him, and the little boy is like, yes, thank you. And it's hilarious to me, because they literally show him with his pants off, and I'm like, damn, he beat him that bad. So it's little stuff like that I just, maybe the whole crowd's not going to laugh at it, but like mentally, and not even overthinking, you just think of just how funny, how purpose and meaningful little scenes like that were. So
I agree.
to your point, man, once this hits streaming, I think it's gonna, matter of fact, because this is the new era we live in, it's not just when it hits streaming, when it's Netflix, I think this film is going to start to pick up traction. You'll come back to this review, this will be months, a year or something later, and people will be like, yeah, that was pretty fun, I had a good time with that. And that's how I feel about it.
And we'd be waiting here like, I told you so, I told you so.
Yeah. Zero, let me ask you one question before we roll the creature, or Frankenstein. Upon his initial resurrection, these pictures are released. Actually, we'll show you that picture right here. What did you think about the design, the fresh out of the crypt design, the mud, the mannerisms behind it? What did you think about the initial reveal?
I thought the initial reveal was great. The only thing that I was missing, since we are in this kind of realm where we're making references to everything, we're giving you all the bits, I would have loved to see an emergence. We didn't get that. We didn't get the classic, here I am coming out of the ground, and I'm gonna go get your ass. We didn't get that. I think it would have been a pretty awesome moment, especially since this whole thing is super 80s coded. Let me just get a hand coming out of the grave, and then Cyndi Lauper starts playing or something, I don't know. But besides that, we're just kind of left to understand that this is what happened. Maybe that was in the shooting process and unfortunately had to be cut, I don't know. But I think we kind of missed a sweet spot there. But I thought that the makeup effects were great. I actually do like that as the Frankenstein's monster is slowly nursed back to health by Lisa, that his practical effects like kind of minimize and he turns into an actual person. But of course, my personal favorite are my man fresh out the grave, because that was nasty. I also love the gag with the tears. Humanity is something that people think about a lot when we're met with reanimation. Are they going to be the same? Are they going to be this brain dead kind of thing? This guy is clearly in touch with his emotions. However, every time he cries is stank. And I thought that was hilarious. I thought that was really smart that they could put it there, like these green goo, just really nice touch on it. No complaints, but I really needed that coming out of the grave scene, especially since we were going to go so hard into the 80s with this. I definitely did miss it. I thought about that on my initial watch. But I can't complain too hard. I'm a fan. What did you think?
Yeah, because I think to that same point is everything I said that this film did right in terms of the marketing and getting you in the film. The more and more you realize that this definitely borrows Frankenstein tropes, but never actually is Frankenstein. They avoided the concrete evidence. I don't even think it was never name dropped either. So
No.
you label this whatever you want. It could probably went through a rebranding at some point. I'm not sure if this hit the independent circuit or not, but it probably did go through a renaming. And they say, hey, we need something with a little bit more oomph. I always talk about Birds of Prey, and no one knew what that was. They say, oh, we need to throw Harley Quinn in there so people is at least curious about what this is. Even they do it all the time. So this could have been anything. It could have probably been Lisa Swallows. That's like, I don't think it's gonna draw, but you do link Lisa Frankenstein, and you're like, and that's what got me. So I don't expect nothing but almost paying homage to the Frankenstein tropes. But this isn't a Frankenstein movie from A to Z, which is why the very important. And even you talk about like they talk about how the reanimation kind of happens, but there's definitely there's some elements on that they definitely tweak, that definitely goes against, I feel like, the traditional Frankenstein trope. Nursing them back, sure, but like, I don't know, there was other little things that obviously just was them and their way of saying we're doing our refreshing take to the end of the film, where I realized like they're just telling their own story at this rate, with just borrowing tropes and just mentions, and I'm paying again homage to not just Frankenstein but other things as well. So, and I'm cool with that. With that. This is completely off topic and genre, but I'd say the same thing about like the House Party movie. It's like, you don't have to be House Party, and you did not execute it right, but you use the name because folks will come in just when they hear House Party, and it did not have to be House Party at all. No business being House Party. But this one doesn't suffer from that same. This actually benefited this one, because good movie or not, whatever you think, the name definitely strikes your intrigue, no matter whatever else they would have had this name. I can't even think of another name that they could have used that would have just gave you that instant like, So that's my thoughts.
Period. Well, you have our thoughts now, folks, so you can decide amongst yourselves if you would like to make the trip to the theater starting today, February 9th, to see Lisa Frankenstein. It is super fun in the theater. I will say I had a great theater experience, especially when everyone starts to laugh at the same time. But also, then again, if you want to wait until you can watch this one at home, also not a bad idea. Just make sure that you have a friend, a homie, a partner, a parent, somebody else with you on the couch that you can laugh along with, because I think this is the driving factor of this film. Final thought, I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 3 to 3.5 out of 5 severed limbs, if you will. And I think that's a pretty decent score for this one. But again, I would encourage you see it because it's a hoot. It's a hoot. All right, y'all. Until next time, thank you for watching. I've been Zero Gravity with the homie Najir, and we'll see y'all at the theater.
I